Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment today we are going to analyze, can Hindus be a minority in states? This topic is very important from the perspective of prelims and from the perspective of GS Mains paper 2 we have to look through. Also, if you are a political science student, from the perspective of optional mains, this is very important. So I will try to make it as brief as possible. I will give you the structure and the proper facts, analysis. After that, opinion making is up to you. So this particular news is being discussed because an affidavit which has been filed by the centre in the Supreme Court in response to a PIL which was petitioned by Ashwini Upadhyay. This affidavit says that even states can take up the responsibilities of notifying Hindus to be a minority where they are under their jurisdiction. And here only we will understand the concept of minorities, what is the background of the entire situation, everything we will discuss in detail. So the background is that public interest litigation challenging the provision of the National Commission for Minority Education Institution Act of 2004. The section 2 clause F of this particular act was challenged by Ashwini Upadhyay ji. And here he says that there is a divide and rule policy that is going on where only few minorities which are declared as minorities at the national level are being protected. Whereas Hindus, according to the census of 2011, are lacking in Lakshadweep, Mizoram, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Jammu and Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Punjab. So here he says that Hindus are very less and they are not being protected. They are not being protected, and in order to establish institution, have a conservation efforts towards their culture in different states. In these states, they have not been given any sort of protection by the act. This is the entire issue. So if we look at the background of the affidavit states that the states, the federal units of the country, they can have their own policy because you see the Maharashtra government had notified Jews as a minority community within the state in the year 2016. This was one of the examples given by the affidavit of the centre. Also, the Karnataka government has notified Urdu, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Marathi, Tulu, Lamani, Hindi, Konkani and Gujarati languages as minority language within the state Karnataka. Okay, and this challenge of the section, which section was challenged of the particular act, this National Commission for Minority Education Institution Act. Remember the section 2F. This is for prelims. Okay. So Supreme Court, where do we have to put our focus on is the Bal Patil case and the TMA Pai case. So we have to understand from this perspective, can Hindus become a minority in different states? So the centre has told yes, 10 different states there are where Hindus can become a minority. Who are minorities? In general terms, we can say the community which has a lesser number of people in relevance to the others who are present within a unit are known as minorities. So from the national perspective, of course, there is an act, the Act of NCM Act of 1992, under which of Section 2 Clause C defines minorities at the national level. And originally, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists and Parsis were declared as minorities in 1992-93. Jains were added as a minority only in the year 2014. So if it is asked in prelims examination, which of the following sections were a part of the original mention of the NCM Act? So you can say Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists and Parsis, but not Jains. Jains were added only in the year 2014. Okay. So what does our constitution say about the minorities? Minorities are nowhere defined in the constitution. there are certain articles which talk about minorities based on linguism, that is language, and religion. So remember two facets of being a minority, religious and linguistic. Article 29 talks or deals about the protection of interest of minorities. So here the word minority is given, but it is not said, okay, Muslim is a minority, Christian is a minority. That is all defined in the Act. It says that whoever minorities are there in any part of the country or at the national level have the right, again, I am reiterating, any part of the country. Units are also there, any part of the country or the country itself, they have the right to protect their distinct language, script or culture. Okay. One thing we can take from Article 29 is territorial unit. That is, it can be with respect to the entire country or the state again. And no citizen shall be denied admission into any education institution which is funded by the state, which is of the state, that is the government, or having the aids of the state. They cannot deny admission to any citizen based on religion, race, caste, language, or any one of them. One thing is missing here, that is sex. Remember that. Sometimes it can be asked in the prelims examination. Article 29 also says that prohibition cannot be done on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, language, but that will be wrong because sex is not mentioned over here. Okay. Then Article 30 is also there, which deals with the right of minorities to establish and administer education institution. Okay. So that was also a facet in the PIL, that minorities, that is Hindu minorities, which are very less in the states of Mizoram, Nagaland, Jammu and Kashmir. So there what happens, that they are not able to have their own education institution and administer them. So that was also a fact. So that is why this PIL talks about having a status of minority in different states as well, where Hindus are not in majority. And Article 350 Clause A, it says that there shall be a special officer for linguistic minorities. Here again, language. Minorities who speak a language which is minor, to be appointed by the president. Who appoints the special officer? That is the president. So the special officer for linguistic minority works towards the welfare of the linguistic minorities. The report is handed to the president by the special officer for linguistic minorities, and then the president tends to lay that report in the parliament. Okay, so these are the different articles which talk about minorities. And if we talk about the previous judicial stance, and importantly, which cases the Supreme Court might take into consideration, definitely will take into consideration, not might. That is TMA Pai case of 2002. Okay, and also we have to talk about here the number of judges were 11. The number of judges were 11, and it dealt with to establish and administer education institution of their choice, the minority choice, under the Constitution. That is, of course, Article 30. And here reference was made to certain things. It was said that Hindus were not a majority in Punjab, and that is why they cannot have any protection under Article 30 to establish their own institution. Okay, so Kerala Education Bill case of 1958 did talk about that wherever we have to categorize minorities, it shall be on the basis of states as a unit. States as a unit. Of course, if we have a federal structure and we have divisions of the state based on linguistic, cultural and religion, it might have been there in the past. On linguistic basis, of course, Andhra Pradesh was created. So why not conserve those minorities which did not have this privilege of having their own separate state based on language? So in a state, if any community is a minority, they can be declared so by the state as a unit. Okay, so this was said in the 𝐾𝐫𝐤𝐬 case. In the DAV College Bhatinda versus State of Punjab, the contention of Hindus being a minority was actually, it was not taken into consideration by the Supreme Court, in the sense that it was said that Hindus, of course, were a majority in India. This was the concept which was brought forward in this DAV College, this particular case, DAV College Bhatinda versus State of Punjab, that Hindus were a majority in India. That is why they could not be a religious minority of the state. This contention was negated by the Supreme Court by saying that states are a unit of considering which group is a minority and which group is not. So what constitutes a linguistic or a religious minority must be judged in relation to the state, in as much as the Impeachment Act was a state act and not in relation to the whole of India. So this is one of the guiding lights for this particular PIL. Again, if we talk about Bal Patil case, here again, the state, the unit for determining the status of both linguistic and religious minority would be the state. It is explicitly said in this case of 2005. This was a case of 2005, okay? And the minority for the purpose of Article 30 cannot have different meanings depending upon who is legislating, who is making the law. It cannot be differential, okay? Also, it was said that a linguistic minority will have to be determined in relation to the state in which the education institution is sought to be established, and also the position with regard to religious minorities is similar, because according to Article 30, they have to be brought at par. But ironically, what did the center say? The center said that PIL should not be entertained because it is not in the interest of public, and it is also not something that is in national interest. So the Supreme Court should not have any sort of judgment on this. So this is very ironical. And because the PIL did have certain reservations with respect to Article 29 and Article 30, this was taken up by the Supreme Court. Okay, so here this entire concept that I made you understand is with respect to clearing your head who can be a minority and who can't be a minority. Let's move forward and talk about our mains-based question. The Supreme Court has been consistently observing that minorities are to be defined at the level of states, carved out on a linguistic basis, as Article 30 uses both expressions, minorities, whether based on religion or language. You have to discuss this, okay? So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated, and thank you so much for watching.